The dogs.
Hey, J-Bone Nation! Shaming of Jay. He's not a dopey dumb bitch. He gets laid. The court jester. The court DJ. It's time to dive into the case. To the case.
What is going on, everyone? Hey guys, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good, we're good. We are super excited, me and Shannon, to have Joe Jackalone and Cheryl Mack McCollum here to talk Rex Sherman and the Long Island serial killer. So Cheryl, you were here. You were on Long Island. You came here, and you made the trip. From Rex Sherman's house to Gilgo, and from the Holiday Inn. So first of all, did anyone give you the finger and curse you out on any of the trips? And second of all, what were your observations on the trips first when you made the rides?
Well, I took my sister Charlene with me because I needed somebody to help, you know, find our way, basically. And I mean, there was a couple of times maybe we felt we were getting that Long Island, welcome, and it was fun for us, because we were a little bit slower than everybody else because we were trying to figure out, do we want this exit or another exit? And I mean, I don't drive slow at all. I mean, I love to, you know, send something wide open when I can, but I didn't want to miss anything. And so I was not just trying to find directions, but I was also trying to absorb this scene because I wanted to know as I'm passing things, is that a better place for a body? Is that somewhere he could have gone and had some, private time with somebody legitimately and then moved to a different location? So there was a lot going on in my mind. But yeah, there were some folks that wanted me to get on out of their way. But overall, fantastic people. I mean, we had a blast, and part of it was because of, Sergeant Jack alone. He told us some places to go and some things to do, and I'm telling you, there was one period of time it was a flat party on that island. We had a ball.
So Joe, what was the advice you gave to Mac when she made her trip here?
You had to go to the All American Drive-In Hamburger place. That's something that Hey, listen, everybody does it after the beach, right? So you can't call yourself a Long Islander until you've gone to the beach and then gone to the All American. So that was
That's
basically
exactly what we did.
yeah, that's exactly what you did. But one of the things I had told Cheryl was that people don't realize how big Long Island really is. I mean, it's when they hear island, they think like this, little tiny thing, whatever. But
Yes.
you got a few million people living on Long Island, and it's quite the interesting place sometimes over the history, right?
Yeah, for sure. And so Mac, you get to the scene. So I want to ask Mac and then Joe. You
Okay.
get to the scene. What this is a cold case. It's been a while. What are you thinking about? Like, what's your perspective when you get there? What are you thinking about?
Well, again, I started at the Holiday Inn where Megan Waterman was last seen, and I did that on purpose because if she was taken from that convenience store and then somehow wound up, you know, north of Gilgo a little bit, I wanted to take that same route. So that's the first thing that I did. What blew my mind almost immediately was the amount of activity. There are so many people. And like you said, I kind of had in my mind like Jekyll Island or St. Simon's Island or Martha's Vineyard. No, there are so many people. And you've got multiple lanes of traffic before you even get there. So there's all kind of things that could happen. You could have somebody hit you. You could have a flat tire. You could have somebody in a hired truck see inside. You could see somebody that says, hey, who is that young blonde with him? You know what I mean? There's all kind of things that could occur. So immediately I'm thinking there is some added risk even getting to the body disposal site. So then I start thinking, when do I think that Megan is no longer alive? Do I think it's between the hotel and Gilgo, or do I think something happened once they got to Gilgo? And again, this is a streetwise person that has a pimp. Is she going to make this trip? It ain't quick. And I'm thinking every minute that passes, at some point, she's got to realize this dude ain't taking me to see the lighthouse. I mean, so all that's going through my mind all at the same time. And this movie starts to play. What is she doing? What is she thinking? What is he doing? How is he acting? Right? Once I get to the bridge, it is so beautiful. I mean, it is just a spectacular, it looks like a movie. And the homes, and then you've got the marsh on one side and the ocean on the other. And I'm thinking, I mean, this is a place, hey, I'd have gone with him. You know what I mean? Because now you feel safe. Now this guy's legitimate. So she has traveled all this way. Now she's making a secondary trip. She's not just working out of the hotel. So if she has willingly gone with this person, it's for a lot of money, I'm thinking. And once she sees these houses, she's like, oh, yeah, this is my pretty woman moment for sure. So she's going to make thousands of dollars to be in one of these spectacular homes. I mean, in a setting, you just would not be afraid. You wouldn't.
Right. And now you get there, and Joe, if you could, and I'm sure Mac is going to add this, but Joe, so you get there, you're at Gilgo. Can we talk about the brush, the thicket, what it's like down there?
Well, yeah, and that has changed a lot, right? So they put in some bike lanes like they've done everywhere else in New York, right? There's a bike lane everywhere. Nobody's on the bikes, but they have a bike lane. Uh, and they actually covered up most of the crime scenes that I mean, there's still little bushes and stuff like that. But back when this thing first happened, it was, I mean, you barely had enough room to pull over to the side of the road, and you had enough room for a car back then. And then the bramble was right there, right? So it's a thicket. There's poison ivy. There's thorn bushes. You name it. So this is something that you wouldn't want to walk through just for the sake of doing it, right? So that was part of his plan of making sure that nobody found these bodies, right? Because I'm sure at one point all those beachgoers and surfers had to smell something, right? And Cheryl will tell you too, the smell of a dead human body is unmistakable. I mean, once you smell one,
Yep.
you can pick them out a mile away. You could tell the difference between an animal and a human too. So it's that kind of pungent smell. So at that point, somebody, you have your windows down or you're driving your convertible to the beach. Somebody had to smell something back then. I mean, and there's too many bodies when you think about it there not to have provided some sort of cover for that. So that's just another part of it's just another part of that whole thing. But and I had posted that video on the Twitter feed because people were saying, well, how far can you go? I mean, it was like you pull over and there it was. I mean, it was like within a matter of a foot or two. I mean, there was no shoulder, no nothing. I mean, you're on the grass and you're in the thicket. It's as simple as that.
Right. And now that you've been there, Mac, what do you think about, and we've talked about this with Joe before, but what do you think about the theory about the boat, him being on a boat, as opposed to him just driving up and dropping bodies?
Privately, I had asked Sergeant Jackalone what he thought. Could he possibly use a boat? Because when I first looked at the map, it looked to me like the ocean, the roadway, the marsh, and then just a few little streets. So I thought, surely if there's a marina there, he's got access to a boat and could have just gone over. Well, Sergeant quickly made me realize not possible, no way. Well, the way he responded to me, I knew I wasn't looking at this map correctly. Well, once I got there, honey, he ain't nowhere near the water. It took me 30 minutes to get to his house from Gilgo. And I didn't hit every red light. And I wasn't driving slow. But I couldn't get there much quicker. So again, that told me he added some risk to his trip. And this was a spot that he deliberately picked for whatever reason he picked it. It means something to him. The way he left them means something to him. There's a ton of places in between there you could have put somebody. but he chose that location. And again, when I'm going in, there's, 2 lanes going in and there's 3 lanes going out. And then there's the median. The median became very interesting to me. I turned around several times and I finally said to my sister Charlene, I said, watch this. When we're leaving, you would have vast just openness in that median. And then you would have almost a tiny little forest. And I said, right there is where he's going to put a body. And then we'd have another break. And then there'd be another, just right in the the median between those, 5 lanes, another little forest that you can't even see the marsh. You can't see it. I said, there's a body. So I'm telling you, he's going to use that median as also a natural barrier. So if somebody were to be coming down that way, they would never see him, ever. So he really only has to now be quick enough if somebody is coming in, which is at 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, probably almost never going to happen.
Right.
And he didn't put them far. It didn't take long to dump them. I mean, it's open the door, drag them, done, you're out. And like the sergeant was saying, that Bramble, there were sections of it I would have had to have a hatchet. I mean, you can't just walk through it. You can't even see the ground. You just have to have faith where you're stepping, that there's not going to be a hole and you're not real sure where the marsh is going to start. And at dark, the ground just disappears.
Well, and at dark, there are no lights there. It is
None.
so freaking dark. We made that trip at night, and you can't see anything.
Nope.
And it's buggy, and it's a mess. And I know Shannon has a question, but before Shannon asks, I want to make sure you guys are following Joe and Mac on YouTube, because Mac now has a YouTube. Well, this is going to put
I
up
have
all
one
their
video.
links. Twitter, and make sure you're checking out the podcast, Mac's podcast. By the way, I found out today, if you say, or I don't have one in here, if you say, hey, Alexa, play Zone 7, it plays it. And I was listening to it because I don't know if it's because I connected my devices or whatever, but it went right to play the last one where Mac went to Alcatraz, and it just started playing it. It was really cool. So guys, make sure you are following both of them. I don't know, doesn't look like the links are working, but guys, if the mods can put the links in, please do that. But check them both out and give 5 stars on the podcast, or Nancy Grace is coming to your house. But babe, go ahead with your question. Sorry.
So now that you've both been there and you see the proximity of the bodies, is it probable to you that 2 people could be using the same dumping ground in the same, I don't know, is it roughly like 5 miles?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll start off with that. From the very beginning, I've said that there was just one killer. And part of the reason is because of the fact of how remote this location is. There are Long Islanders, before this case even broke, didn't even know that Oak Beach existed, unless you were that, age of drinking the Oak Beach Inn back in the day that was there. I mean, you didn't know that Gilgo Beach unless you were a surfer, right? I mean, it's as simple as that.
Yep.
There's a marina, it's on the north side, but so fishermen and those kind of individuals, those are the only ones that really knew this place existed. So I would say no. And I think what Cheryl was describing before when she said she went over the bridge, she's going over the Robert Moses Causeway, right? So it's actually like the 2 bridges that you go there and you get to the top of the hill, right? So you really have to know where you're headed in order to find this location.
Agreed.
And I do think that he came down the Robert Moses off the Southern State Parkway, came right down there, right into Gilgo, because if you look at the map and you look at where the bodies were located, they started right after you get onto Ocean Parkway going west towards the city. I mean, they start right there. And if you notice, it's like a progression, right? So he starts off where you have the remains of Valerie Mack and the baby Doe from Peaches. And listen, and I think Cheryl will back me up on this. Cops don't believe in coincidences. It's just as simple as that. We don't believe in coincidences, and that's why I stuck with the one killer. Yeah, I kind of was thinking about maybe it was a cabal of men. After a while, because what happens is when you start getting all kinds of stimuli from other people, and they're saying, "What about this? What about that?" It tends to kind of confuse you. But you know what? When you can center yourself back in, and go back and stick with what you initially thought, you can probably figure out that you were right. Now, listen, I've been wrong before. I know they're throwing out the name of John Bitroff right now with the other girls, whatever. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out, but I'm still sticking right now until other evidence tells us otherwise, because we don't have the case file in front of us. So everything we think is just that.
Right.
It's a speculation, it's a thought, but it's also based on some experience. But the issue that comes down to is you stick with the one until you know more.
I mean, there's no way to disagree with that. And the only thing I would add is this is a personal thing to this killer.
Mm-hmm.
He picked the victim, he picked the day, he picked the location, he picked what was going to happen to her from the moment he decided she's fixing to die. He picked the dumping ground. It is almost impossible for somebody to come behind him and do something almost exactly the same. So to me, you're going to let the evidence lead you. If we start developing this other man, that's great. But these 4, these 5, these 6, these 7, I would stand by on that. I mean, to me, Peaches is obvious. The Asian male is going to be obvious to me. I mean, I don't see another person being involved with that. And again, if you're a copycat, you would have to know he's doing it. They didn't know, right? And then the second thing is there's going to be a little difference. There just is. So that's all I can tell you. And especially when you add that component of sexuality. Nobody's going to be able to mimic exactly.
Right. So I'm curious, Mac, we talked about last time, if you took over this case, you are going to have a room, you're going to have you're going to have a board, you're going to have all this stuff, ready in front of you so you can start making connections. I'm curious, now that you've been there, is there anything in there that you didn't think of before that now is going in that room that you want to analyze?
Yes, Lord. I mean, the whole thing changes when you get there. I took burlap because I wanted to know. Even if it's not, and I did this on purpose, I didn't want even the camouflage burlap. Just give me regular old burlap. Y'all, without hiding it. If I just tossed it into that bramble, it would disappear. And then I would put it somewhere. I mean, just tossed it. I didn't shove it. I didn't hide it. Sometimes it was at eye level. And then I would tell my sister, all right, I put it somewhere, just walk. She's looking for it and couldn't see it. I've got several photographs I can send you that will blow your mind. So even if you were walking by, even if you were changing a tire, you wouldn't see it. You might smell it, but that's a different thing. But you would not see it. I'm telling you, it was wicked wild.
Well, I mean, this is why folks need to be following Mac on YouTube because we're going to watch right now, guys, and you're going to see exactly what she's talking about, guys.
Gilgo Beach, and to show you how easy it would be to hide a body wrapped in burlap, even if that burlap is not camouflaged. Look at the natural surroundings. You can't see. Now this is eye level. So imagine even if somebody was on the ground. So to show you how easy it would be, you never even saw it. Gilgo Beach, and to show you.
So,
you hear those cars flying by?
Flying by.
Yeah, so you're not going to see it driving by 70 miles an hour on Ocean Parkway either.
You're not. No way. And most people, even if it's a human, if they smell it, they're going to assume it's a deer or a skunk or some type of animal. They're never going to think, oh, I bet that's a dead body. They just don't.
And I grew up in a place where if you're pulled over on the side of the road at 1 a.m, somebody's probably going to stop and make sure you're okay. Long Island is not that place. They are going to keep going. They don't even notice that you're there, care that you're there, want to know anything about why you're there. Please don't tell me anything about your life. So I just can't see anybody ever even having that register in their mind. Oh, yeah, I saw a green truck there. No, you didn't see anything because you're just going on your business.
Yeah.
Right.
You mind your own business. Yeah. I mean, the thing about New Yorkers, or specifically Long Island, is like the term how you doing is not a question, right? We really don't care how you doing. So don't answer that, right? So hey, how you doing? Oh, I'm doing fine. No, don't answer the question, right? Because we really don't care. And we're also taught to mind your own business, right? So it's kind of like the New York City mentality. It's a little softer than that, but it's really, people are pretty much trained. Mind your own business, right? Not my problem. Keep on driving, right? I mean, unless it was a relative that called you up and said, listen, I broke down, I need help. That's the only time you're going to do it. You're going to keep on driving.
Well, and,
Right.
and to Mac's point, if this is at 3 a.m. with there's
Oh,
guys,
yeah.
there are no like me and Shannon did the ride, and like if you check it out, but like it's so dark, there are no lights, so like even if they're not going to see you, but even if they did, they would they would leave you alone, but no one's seeing you.
And we deliberately went over Labor Day because I wanted more activity. Because when Megan disappeared, it was over Memorial Day, so I wanted some kind of semblance. There were so many people, the surfers, and I saw so many things I'd never seen before. I'd never seen anybody take the air out of their tire to ride onto the sand, and then when they came off, pump their tires back up. We had never seen that, so we were talking to a ton of the surfers and just people in town. Super nice. They had lots of things. Of course, they wanted to add and tell us about that area, and I can't describe for people enough the beauty. And to me, that was so significant because you take this place that it, to me, really would be a movie set. That you've got the ocean and the marsh. So no matter which way you're looking, sunrise or sunset is spectacular. But to y'all's point, once that sun sets, buddy, I mean, it's lights out. I mean, you cannot see anything. So again, there had to be some great understanding of how people operated on that island for him to feel comfortable enough to put them just right there. That you just don't believe people are going to be hiking or walking. You don't think there's maybe the possibility somebody's going to be changing a tire right there, like Joe said, because people are they're moving. But we had a wonderful time. And I'm telling you, you're joking some about long. I'm not really joking maybe, but to your point, we didn't really experience that. And I'm telling you, like once we got into town at the, Great American Hamburger, that place, it was wrapped around, right? So we get out. My sister Charlene is super friendly. She starts talking to all these, bikers and athletes and college kids, like all this just eclectic group of folks. That place turned into a freaking party. We had the best time. And then, we stayed and went, a few other places and had just as good a time. But everybody was just, I thought extraordinarily fun and kind and,
So, Joe, one thing I'm curious about, just about like, I'm sure you guys think about this because like it's like I think an obvious thing, but like the fact that this man was an ogre, like this is a giant man, like any other way, like just the path of least resistance. And we kind of talked about this last time, but like this guy is massive, so like it makes sense that he's going to be right there, he's right by the road, brings it right to the broad. Like he's not gonna like if he had to do more than that, he might have a heart attack. Like is any of that like? Now that we know who he is, and any of that kind of like click that like that makes sense. That's why they're there.
Well, it makes sense on that respect. It also makes sense that there's really none, no witnesses to any of this thing, right? Because this guy is unmistakable, right? So, I
Right.
mean, if you saw him, like I try to explain to my students, because we're back in school now and we're talking about this, and I said, did you see the picture with him and the cops, right? When they were he was about a foot taller than them, and I'm sure those
Yes.
cops weren't that short. Right, so they're probably at least 5'10". Some of those guys. I mean, this guy towered over them, and that's why when people think that a lot of this stuff happened in the house, and I'm like, I don't think so because, you got a lot of nosy neighbors, and I mean, like I said, he's unmistakable, right? So if you see him coming, you're looking, and that's because we don't really see people that big, so it's just something that it kind of sticks out like a sore thumb,
And
so to
kind of
speak.
and oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No. But what Cheryl was talking about before about the trip, and for those that never been to Long Island or never grew up on Long Island, I would encourage you to go to like Google Maps or Google Earth, and you can actually take the trip that she's talking about, because I think it's important that for those that are watching today, that you get a kind of sense of what's going on, right? So you're looking for the Robert Moses Causeway, and you're looking
Yep.
for the Southern State, entrance on it, and then you can actually follow the same path because as soon as it says Ocean Parkway West, New York City, that's where
Yep.
you get off, and then that's where the body started, being left in that whole strip because every body, every and then new word body, right? Every victim that was left is on the westbound side, north of the westbound Ocean Parkway. There's only one person, that was Shannon Gilbert. Without her, right, we don't have anything. She was the
Right.
only one found south of the eastbound Ocean Parkway, right? So that's something to consider. So I'm a firm believer that Rex or whom if there's others, they came down the Robert Moses right onto the parkway, dumped them, and it kept on going straight because then you go right up the Wantor Parkway and you're right in Massapequa. I mean, it's not really that far of a stretch when you look at it that way.
Yeah, it's
And I just want to interject one thing. Shannon is also the only one that had the opportunity to run and try to get away for 20 minutes. So her location makes sense that it would be different. I'll just put that out there.
right, and it's basically like you're saying, it's like a loop. It's like boom, boom, boom.
a
It's
loop.
just like a
It's an oval
perfect
loop.
for
Yep.
someone who's lived on Long Island his whole life, and I think worked in Jones Beach or allegedly worked by there. It just makes sense. But babe, I know you had another question, right? About the new stuff, or
Oh, yeah. So, was I asking about the new stuff? I can't remember what I was.
well, I'll ask. Did you have
Okay.
one? Or, God.
No, I was just wondering. So they are now trying to link this 1989 case as well with Rex. But what was told to this family before you threw this name out before, Joe, was Bitroff, and he is he currently in jail or is he passed? Okay, all right. So he's currently in jail. What do people need to know who've never heard this name before?
Yeah, John Bitroff he's a suspected serial killer. He actually got charged with the murder of two sex workers. I know one was Tan Greedy, her last name. The other last name just eludes me for the second. But he was actually a suspect in the third killing. And his name was thrown about for a long time as being also the Gilgo serial killer too. So there was a lot of things. Now all of a sudden his name is resurfaced with the Manorville butcher cases. That's what they're referring to as Valerie Mack and Jessica Taylor, whose also remains were found in Gilgo. So that was what I had referred to earlier, right? So it's an interesting thing now that his name is popping up in this again. Uh, it's listen, anything's possible, right? I mean, we already have. For some reason, Long Island has had its share of serial killers. I think I think it was like 5 or 6 over the last few decades that we've had, right? So you kill at least 3 or more people. I think that's the FBI definition. So, that's an interesting fact. It must be the traffic on the Bell Parkway that drives everybody nuts.
I mean,
On the Southern State Parkway. I mean, no, all jokes aside, right? I don't know what it is, the water or the potato farms and the fertilizers back in the day. I don't know, but for an island to have this many serial killers over the last couple of decades is actually kind of amazing.
That is
You had
amazing.
Robert Schulman, you had Bitroff, you have now Rex Urban. Maybe they have somebody else that gets attached to Gilgo. You had Cottingham. That was, I think, and the other name eludes me. But as I was doing the research, I'm like, my God, there's a lot of people that, kind of. And you think about it, like I don't know how old you guys are, but I'm pretty old. We didn't have any supervision when we were kids, right? You were just mom and dad went to work or whatever, and go ahead, go and play. And if you came home, it was great. If you didn't come home, well, then they called the cops. But you think about it. I mean, that could play a role in this too. I mean, I guess for all my fellow Generation Xers, because people think I'm a boomer. No, I'm not that old, but anybody who grew up on Long Island knows exactly what I'm talking about.
absolutely. And so, Mac, one thing I'm curious about. So now you've been here, you've gone to the scene, you made the trips. Does your insight into Rex Sherman, now that you've done that, give you any insight into like other places that might not be Long Island where they might start finding, just like your analysis after you've gone there, like has it opened you up to like new things you're thinking about that you didn't think about before you made the trip?
Well, can we talk about his house first? Because I think
Absolutely,
that's
we can.
relevant.
Yeah.
Again, when I've only seen two dimensional. So when Charlene and I were, driving the neighborhood, I wanted to deliberately start out and work my way to his house. Every home was just adorable. The landscaping, the way they had their furniture outside, several people, especially on two streets, every single person had a tent set up, like the whole little area was going to, celebrate the holiday. So these are people that, you know, they come together, they enjoy each other's company, they know each other, it's small. When I turned on his street, what I had anticipated and what I saw was almost the same, except for one complete factor. His house was so close to the street and he was so close to each neighbor that I agree, with Joe that if he had brought woman after woman after woman there, somebody would have seen it. There ain't no way to hide getting her even from the car to the front door without easily 7 different houses seeing it, 2 on each side, and their second story windows look right down on his porch, and then the 3 or 4 houses in front, because it's right there. I mean, from his mailbox to his garage, I could sink a basketball with no effort at all. It's that close. It's like a free throw shot. It ain't far.
Mm-hmm.
So when I got there, I thought, well, you know, it looks like I thought it would look, because I've seen plenty of up close pictures. All that was accurate, the 2x4, everything. His golf clubs or somebody's golf clubs are out front. There's all kind of things that look like he built things crudely, but there's different like work benches. There's tons of wood that is used for some type of building, but I don't know what it would all be used for, but there's tons of stuff like that. There's tarps, nothing looks brand new, nothing. Even the umbrella in the front is weathered, you know. It's exactly like you think it is. It's just much closer to everybody. It's just in this little capsule.
Right. And, Joe made the point, too, that you're kind of bringing up is not only is it that everyone's so close, but Joe was like, on Long Island, ain't no way that this is happening. And everyone's just like, they're not saying anything. Like, they're calling their neighbor right up and they're like, did you see that 3 a.m. that he's coming in with the girl? Like, there's just no way.
Right.
So, and Joe,
Right.
and I'm curious, what do you think about, like, so first of all, if you could comment on that, because you explain it excellently, but also,
Yeah.
what do you, I'm starting to see these specials, and I'm starting to see like these folks who are like, yeah, this is the guy we said was the serial killer. Then I said to my dad, yeah, this is the, like, are we believing that these people really, like, that they didn't say anything and now they're coming out and like they always thought? What do you think about that, Joe?
Yeah, and I've actually commented this on the news media a couple of times too. I'm like, listen, you had every news agency in the world in Massapequa Park going when this thing was going on, when they were tearing out the house apart, right? I mean, you name it, and you could have gotten in front of the camera very easily and said, "We always knew this was the guy, right? This is I saw a parade of women going through it." There wasn't one person that said anything during the entire time. So if you were looking for your 15 minutes of fame, you blew it, right? I mean, that's the whole thing. So yeah, I find it very difficult to understand that anybody would come out now after the fact, because look, we've seen this 100 times where the only person I think, that was like 1 or 2 people that said that, I don't let my kids go, trick or treating over there, right? So, or when we really don't bother with him, or he really, he was quiet. He didn't really. And I would say that's the hallmark of these guys, because they never want to attract attention. That's why they always say, "Well, he was a nice guy. Nobody even knew him. He was quiet." Yeah, because they don't want to attract attention. I always tell people, the guy in the neighborhood that's yelling and screaming at everybody, "Get off my lawn!" This and that. You don't got to worry about him, because he's made himself a spectacle. Everyone's going to focus in on him if something goes wrong. It's the one that nobody says anything about.
Right.
Can I prove to you what Sarge is saying?
Sure.
They're still living in that house. How, in God's name, could you be in that house if the neighbors and everybody else was always, causing issues? They're not. They're not. They're right there. There's photographs of them sitting on the front porch. Nobody's bothering them. They're left alone. And I think that's critical. Like with Gabby Petito, look what happened to, the killer's parents. They had podcasters camping out on their front lawn in the street, demanding they come outside. When I went there, there wasn't a soul. There was people walking their dogs. There was some kids playing lacrosse. There was people setting up for the holiday. Nobody was bothering them.
Right. So
Yeah.
I'm curious, Max. So you kind of give us some stuff that I, of course, haven't thought of, or probably a lot of us haven't thought about. Was there anything else on your trip that was like a light bulb moment, or something that you were like, oh, I just didn't think about this before, and now this makes sense? Or
What I did not think about before, again, was the amount of traffic, the amount of people. There were people literally everywhere, not just the diner, but like when we left the diner, it wasn't like everybody else was vacant. I mean, there were people driving, walking, cycling. There were motorcycles, no helmets, people talking. There was so much activity and there was traffic until we went to bed. So to me, I kept thinking, well, this is going to be a little 2-lane road lined with woods, water on both sides. Nobody can see anything. That wasn't the case. Even when we were leaving, there was one marina that had beautiful boats, houseboats, full of people celebrating. And then there behind them in this parking lot was a line of RVs. So these people all had fire pits. Everybody's out, having a great time. So there's pockets where there's all kind of activity. Now, again, you can go on down where nobody can see you, because I just stopped my car and got out, and I figure there ain't nobody here that's going to tell me I can't do it. And if they come up, then it's just going to make even a better story for me to understand, is anybody going to stop or not? And of course, nobody did. And so, me and Charlene were able to walk around and get good pictures and get a good understanding. There were bugs. There was, I'm sure, animal activity. I didn't see a bunch, but, you just understand what's probably going on. But the amount of people, I think that blew my mind as much as anything. And the number of lanes, I did not think there would be literally 5 lanes of traffic and a gigantic, median. I mean, that was mind blowing. And then I did not know before I got there, even though I'd seen the pictures, you don't realize how big those dunes are. You can't see the ocean. So you are so covered. It's like you're in this little bowl and you've got woods over here. Then you've got woods in the center. And then you've got this dune over here. You could do whatever you want and nobody would see you do a thing. And if anybody's coming, you can see them a good half a mile away before they get to you.
Right.
So it's kind of a good spot.
right, baby, do you have another question?
I was going to ask you, Joe, I know that you're a retired NYPD, but did you ever have any Suffolk County run-ins with any of our corrupt police and people here? That's why we're finding out now that this investigation was grossly mishandled from the beginning, and that's kind of why they're saying that it was mishandled. And I was just wondering, you were in the city, but did you ever catch wind of anything like this?
No, James Burke actually, got into the cadet program at NYPD, but it was a few years earlier than I got there. I got hired in 1992, and I think he got hired in 1985. I think it was in 1986. So he's a few years older than I am in that respect. So I never had any dealings with Burke or anybody else. But the politics of Suffolk County have been and always will be interesting. Let's put it that way in that respect. But now that things have kind of gotten aired out a little bit with this new administration, right? So we had think about it. We had the police chief, the district attorney, and his top aide in the district attorney's office all go to federal prison. So this is like kind of unheard of in many different aspects. I mean, when you talk about lopped off the entire top of the criminal justice system with one felt swoop, it's actually pretty amazing that just to find out what these guys were doing and just just remember, this was just one case that they got him on.
Right.
But
Right.
there's been lots of history behind there, lots of allegations. But like everything else, they're just allegations until you go to court and prove it, right? You do the probable cause and you arrest somebody. So right now we'll just leave them as allegations. But it's quite a storied history out there.
Right. Well, before I get your guys' final thoughts, we did promise something, and I got something set up here that we're gonna do right now. So we got the wheel for the folks that want the Gary sticker who subscribe to Mac, which please make sure you are subscribing to her YouTube. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mac, but Nancy told you to do this, right? She told you.
She did. She said, you got to put a YouTube video up. And I didn't even know how to do it. So that took me a little
Welcome to the
while.
club.
Oh my gosh, it was horrible. And then Joel was like, I will walk you through it. And then he's like, your address is all wrong. They can't even link to it. And I didn't even know what he was saying. And I'm like, I don't even know what I'm doing. I mean, Charlene is filming me. I feel ridiculous. And, okay.
Well, don't,
But,
because just
you know.
like any video you make, like the first one you made, is going to do good because you are giving us insight that like people don't think about, that other people on YouTube are not giving. No one can give the insight that you and Joe give. Like really, there's very few people in this world. I mean, we're what 50 years of experience or 40 to 50 years of experience. So like even if you're just taking a video on the side of the road, throwing the burlap in, that's something that no one else is doing or thinking about. So like don't like people
Well,
are
I
going to love.
appreciate it, but I wanted to do it for my own edification because, again, I know in the South what you can do with a duck blind and how you just can't see it, but I did not know what it was going to look like there. But between like the seagrass and the natural foliage, y'all, those leaves on some of those plants, I don't know the name of the plants, I'm sorry, the color was identical. It was mind-boggling. He didn't even have to do, camouflage. It naturally camouflaged regular old burlap. It
And guys,
was crazy.
I have actual audio of what it's going to sound like if you don't subscribe to Mac and Joe. I have audio right here of what it's going to sound like. Here it comes.
Okay, I can tell you right now, we got a problem. Now,
Nancy's gonna. Remember when Mac told that story? Nancy is gonna drive to your house. She's gonna be swerving like Fast and Furious. She's gonna bust open the door with the FBI if you are not subscribed to Joe and Mac. So without further ado, let's pick the 5 winners who are gonna win the Gary sticker who did subscribe to Mac. So here we go. Number 1.
As they're spinning this, Cheryl, I think you were with me when Nancy Grace chastised me, right?
Yes.
For being too
wait.
blunt.
Wait until after we finish this. We're going to go back to that. Wait a second. Wait 1 second. All right. Winner number 1 is Joni. There she is. She's in the chat. You won, Joni. All right. Winner number 1. All right. Let's go to winner number 2. And after this, we got to hear this story.
And thanks to everybody for doing this. Again, y'all have just been remarkable.
Yeah, it's been a fun ride so far.
Yeah.
I'm so glad. You guys are awesome. But yeah. All right. Jams. That's Katie. All right. Let's go 3 more. We got you writing them down, babe.
Yep, I'm writing them down.
And I'll tell y'all something funny. Joe's videos helped me. 'Cause
Awesome.
again, just seeing everything. So it's a good education all around.
And, I'll say this, and I say this a million times. That's the thing about our group here, J-Bo Nation, J-Buzz Nation. We want to help you guys, and like we can help you however we can. Because when I said this, you guys were on it, but like for you guys to come on the show with us, it really means the world. Like I said, like there aren't people who have this experience to come on with me and Shannon. Like it really means the world. So how many was that? Was that 3 or 4, babe?
That was 3.
All right, 2 more. Oh, Carly. Oh, wait. Is it Carly? Carly.
Rose?
All right, 1 more. And then we got, I can't wait to hear this story. And then we'll go to the closing.
Oh.
There we go. All right. There will be.
Sleepy lawyer.
That's Miss Esk.
That's Emily, yeah. Make sure your email, shannonshaming19@gmail.com, and we will get those stickers out to you guys. Thanks so much for subscribing to Mac and supporting all of us.
Thank you.
All right, let's hear. Well,
Awesome.
we got to hear this story. Let's go. What's the story, Joe or
So
Matt?
it was actually Cheryl, myself, Josh Zeman from The Killing Season, and there were two other people there. I can't remember their names. Anyway, just to make a long story short, so I've never been accused of filtering anything, and yeah, that's why I missed one of those things. I guess when I was growing up, that I never had a filter, but. Uh, and I behave myself pretty well when I'm doing these YouTube live things, but I've been known to say things that have been pissed people off. But hey, what can I tell you? Anyway, so Nancy is asking me, she asked me a question, whatever, and I used the word streetwalker to identify one of the women. But there was a reason why I wanted to do it, but I didn't get a chance to explain, and she jumped down my throat. I mean, oh my God, right? So I was just, it was just an audio podcast, so you couldn't see my face, of course, but if it was on video, it would have been quite interesting. But I didn't get a chance to explain myself because she went on and on and on. And the reason why I was used, because what happened, it was about the question that you guys had asked before about the Shannon had asked me, right, about one killer or two killers, and I was trying to explain that the initial women, right, Peaches, Valerie Mack, and Jessica Taylor were all dismembered. So my theory has been and always will be that the individual who was responsible for killing them, these women were streetwalkers, and that boom, she blew up. Anyway, but I was trying to explain why, right? So why that was a significant term to use, because these women were picked up off the street where somebody could have seen them.
Yes.
Somebody could have seen them get into the car. So I wasn't using the term to be derogatory. I was using the term in order to make people understand why these women ended up butchered, because he ran the risk. Whoever picked these women up ran the risk of being identified, saying, I saw them get into this car or truck or what have you. So by dismembering them, he made it more difficult for the police to identify them. And it did take a long time before these women were either A, discovered, or B, identified, right? We're still identifying victims now. It's almost, 13, 14 years and some 25 years later. So
Right.
the method worked. And that was the reason why I was trying to explain it, not to be, crass, but that was, oh God, it was funny. And
It was
it was funny because a couple of
hilarious.
people text me afterwards and said, some of the people around the show were going, boy, how did it feel again? She was all over me like a cheap suit. And
It's funny. It's funny because she just did a Fox special, and in that she said hooker and
yeah,
then
that was,
said
yeah.
sex worker. So now she's hypersensitive because she got the same backlash. But I'm going to support Sarge on this one because, again, if he and I are working a case and I have a streetwalker as opposed to a call girl, as opposed to an escort, he and
Yeah,
I already have an
different things.
understanding of how she came to meet this John. And it's completely different. If you have a street, working prostitute, then she might do something for $7. If you've got somebody that's at the plaza that you have met through a third party, she's getting $1,200 a night. That ain't the same John. And it's important for him to understand who I'm telling him this victim is. Again, we can all say sex worker, but that doesn't tell me the victimology that I need to know, period.
Right.
And exactly, and that's the reason why I don't like using that term, because like Cheryl was saying, it's important
agree.
from the law enforcement perspective. Like the type of business that they're involved in also gives you the type of clientele that you could be looking at, and
100%.
it's an important aspect of it. But if you get a chance to listen to that podcast, it was actually pretty funny.
Oh, we gotta check it out. Well, speaking of podcasts and YouTube and everything, Joe, tell the folks what you got planned on your YouTube, because it's pretty great. So let the folks know.
Okay, this Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Savings Time, we're still in that, I have Ryan Backman, who is the founder of Project Cold Case, and he's a great individual because he has dedicated his life now to helping other families specifically navigate the cold case process. So he, unfortunately, his father was murdered. The case was never solved. And I used him as a source for my book, The Cold Case Handbook, and we kind of struck up this friendship. And this is a show you don't want to miss, especially if you are a victim or your family victim, and you want to be able to find out what you can do and how Ryan can help you. This is the show to watch. This is going to be a good one.
Yeah, and guys, I just put in all of Joe's links. So subscribe to YouTube because he's going to be going live just like this. Subscribe and then go on Twitter and spread the word because that's what we do, folks, right? And speaking of good guests, tomorrow Shannon and I are going to have our second Women Who Rock. Our first was with Mac, and it was phenomenal because Mac is phenomenal. And then she said, "I got someone else for you." Mac, tell the folks who's coming on with us and a little background on her.
Well, it's somebody that Joe and I both know very well, Karen Smith. She was a detective in CSI out of Jacksonville, Florida. She's worked it all, and she is wide open, straight from the hip, no apology. She's going to talk the way she talks, and she is who she is, and you are just going to fall in love with her.
And she's going to curse. Go ahead, Joe.
Karen's good. Yeah, Karen's good people, and she is definitely not a baker either. She doesn't sugarcoat anything. So she's going to come right at you and say exactly what's on her mind, which is actually refreshing these days because so many people are guarded by what they have to say, and it's just there's no chance of that happening.
when I asked Sarge his opinion, and he just came at me, "No, that's crazy. You're way off base." Okay, great. If I called Karen, she'll go, "What are you, stupid? How do you not look over here?" And I'm like, "Well, thank God this ain't on a podcast, So, but yes, it's helpful, but they don't have time to, make sure I understand the long way around. They're just going to tell me, which is good.
Well, that's why folks love you and are going to love her is because you guys come at it with you're not trying to put it in a way, you're just coming at it. You're telling us the truth, whether people like it or not, and it's in a way that helps us understand. So, Mac, what do you got coming up on the podcast?
Well, tomorrow I'm going to have a special 9/11 podcast. It'll be a day or two early. It's going to be on a Monday, obviously, because that's 9/11. But it's what happened to me during that day. So it's just a little insight that even though I was in Atlanta, how kind of things transpired for me. And I think you'll enjoy it. I try to give some honor, to what happened in New York and the Pentagon and Pennsylvania and,
Awesome. Well, I just put it in there, guys. Check it out. Of course, as always, give 5 stars. And, I want to talk about just real quick, me and Joe, we're talking to Steve, and we're going to try to have, maybe a little lineup on Sundays because I know some folks like football, but some folks think this.
Foosball. Bunch of overgrown monsters manhandling each other.
So for the folks that think that, we're going to have maybe some lineups where we, have a few shows in a row where we can do stuff like this. So, I guess I think that's it. I can't thank you guys enough for coming on. It's always.
Well, can I give a teaser?
Yeah, sure. You sure can.
Okay. I thought you might like this one. We can't tell you yet, but maybe Monday or Tuesday we can let you know. But Joe and I are going to be involved with something that I think maybe we can give y'all some episodes out of on some Sundays coming up that I think you'll find real interesting.
Oh, all right. Well, that's spoiler. All right, guys, that's a teaser. So I'm sure if these two are doing something, we know it's going to be good. Babe, did you have any final thoughts?
I don't have any final thoughts. I just love that you both came on with us today. It's always refreshing to have either or both, especially both of you, together. And thank you for taking your time out and hanging out with us.
All right,
so, guys.
Thank you so
much.
Sergeant,
it's always a pleasure. And I adore both of you. Thank you. Thank you.
We adore you. And now I feel bad, by the way, that I haven't been calling you Sergeant Joe. Is that all right? Like, since Max been calling
I've been called a lot worse, that's for sure. But it's so now it's great.
Okay, all right. Well, you guys know the deal. Deuces, YOLO, fuck you, Ted.
Deuces, YOLO, fuck you, Ted. Our show has now come to an end. Don't stick a fucking needle in your eye. It's see you later, this is not goodbye. J-Bone Nation will continue to make scenes. We will be piecing for now. Jabroni.